Oh, I thought we had our jurors here.
I want to talk to you first.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Your Honor, on Thursday, the court ordered Mr. Stutchman back for Tuesday. He's the gentleman who flew
Yes.
from up north. We made the flight arrangements, he flew in, he's here, he's been here since 9:30. I don't know how much longer counsel has, but my fear is that he's not gonna be able to catch his 6:55 flight, and my understanding from Mr. Stutchman is he won't be able to come back, and so he made it, if the court remembers, he had to kind of juggle things to be here today. So my request is, if possible, to take him out of order, and let him finish today so that he can go.
And he was on cross.
He's on cross.
From talking to Ms. Rodriguez at lunch, I don't think she has much further with Mr. Schoenberg.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll just wait then?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll go ahead and do that. That's fine. Could counsel approach for 1 minute? Don't need the reporter.
Yes, you go.
Are back in session. Almost all of our jurors are present. Juror in seat number 12 is not present. He indicated to us at the break that he had some issues that have arisen that made it basically impossible for him to continue as a juror. So he has been excused. And that is why we have our alternates. As I explained at the very beginning of the trial, if that were to occur and we didn't have any alternates, we would have to declare a mistrial now and start all over. And that would be a shame. But with the alternates, we are able to select one of our alternates to replace juror number 12 and go on with the trial. So I will ask our clerk to draw a name or number of one of our alternates.
Juror number 4, alternate juror number 4.
Alrighty. And you may recall last week we had Mr. Stutchman up on the witness stand, and his testimony went over to today's date, and we're going to basically interrupt the testimony of Mr. Sjogren, hopefully to complete Mr. Stutchman's testimony today. So I guess he's getting set up to do that.
Good. Just a couple more minutes.
Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
Okay, and I believe Ms. Rodriguez, or Mr. Hines,
I'll give it to Ms. Rodriguez, that's fine.
no comment. You may,
I'm not sure how to take that.
you may continue your examination, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Stutzman, how are you?
I'm weary but present.
So you mentioned on your direct examination the difference between unique characteristics and class characteristics. Recall that?
I do.
Okay. So the general look of the front of a Chevy 3500 would be a class characteristic, right?
Correct.
Because for the most part, every 3500 made in a production design era or period would look basically the same.
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled again.
That would be my opinion.
Well, you even researched that issue for this case,
That's correct.
right? To distinguish class characteristics from unique characteristics, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you made an effort to highlight things that were, would be considered class characteristics on the defendant's truck. If we can have attorney 4, please. I'm showing you what's been marked as my attorney, please. Sorry, got it. Exhibit 401,
Yes,
picture of the defendant's truck. You're familiar with this?
I am.
And it would be correct to say that the location of the license plate and the Chevy emblem and the general shape of the grille would be a class characteristic, correct?
Yes.
The addition of the strobe light and the other stuff in the bed, that would not be a class characteristic, correct?
It could or couldn't. If there are a lot of trucks that have that, it would be a class characteristic. If it was just one, it would be an individual.
But you're not aware of any evidence that that was created or put on that truck by Chevrolet Motors, are you?
Correct.
Okay. So those would be a subset, let's say a subclass characteristics for any company that modified the truck with that type of bed and light and carriage frame on top.
Correct.
Okay, so a subclass.
Correct.
So that would limit the number of trucks in the universe that would have that characteristic.
I don't know how many trucks there are in the universe that we have.
But it would limit further the number of trucks that would exist with those characteristics,
I would think so.
right? Because Chevy, let's say, built 1 million trucks with that front end
Yes.
of 3,500, right?
Hypothetically.
You would agree, hypothetically, and you would have to hypothetically agree that not all 1 million of those trucks have the strobe light and the utility box and the carriage on the back.
Correct.
Okay, so that would reduce the number in the universe by some percentage, right?
Correct.
But you're not familiar with what that percentage would be.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, looking at the front of the truck, you noted and tried to characterize as a class characteristic this, and I'm trying not to put dry out, I believe it, electrical box located on the front bumper, correct?
Correct.
And you attempted to find trucks that had that same electrical box on the front bumper, correct?
An electrical box.
Were you able to find any in that exact same position as is found on the defendant's truck?
I don't believe so. They were in close, but not exactly.
Matter of fact, the ones you found were actually located in the grill on top of the bumper more towards the center, correct?
Actually, I don't recall in this one.
Would it refresh your recollection to refer to your report?
Sure,
Do you have that handy?
I do.
Okay.
I'll get there. Okay, yes. The first one has it on top of the bumper instead of on front of the bumper.
Correct.
And the fourth one has it on top of the bumper as well.
So you were not able to find one with this electrical box located in a similar or same position as is found on the defendant's truck.
18 years later, that's correct.
And so that would again limit the number of hypothetical trucks in the universe that would have that as a characteristic.
It would.
Okay. Are we getting closer to it being a unique characteristic then?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know how many other trucks there were out there in 2010 with a similar or identical outlet.
You're not aware of it being a standard edition put on by Chevy, correct?
I don't know who put it on.
So if it was not put on by Chevy, that would make it somewhat unique, correct?
Your Honor, I don't object. The witness has indicated he doesn't know.
Overruled. You can answer if he has anything.
I don't know.
So let's look at the back of the defense truck. This is Exhibit 403. You're familiar with this, correct?
Yes.
See the shape of the hitch?
Yes.
Were you able to find any other trucks with that same type of hitch?
I don't believe so.
So that would be quite unique, wouldn't it?
Well, keep in mind this was 18 years later that we were searching.
18 years?
Well, 2010 to 2018.
I'm no math whiz, but that sounds like 8 years.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, so
We can check that with the next witness.
we can. I mean, I am a lawyer after all, not a mathematician. But you were not able to find anything similar to that in your research of the trucks, correct?
Correct.
So that would be more of a unique characteristic, right?
More of a unique characteristic.
You're not aware that that came standard on a Chevy truck, correct?
I have no knowledge of that.
Okay. So while we're back here on this photograph, let me see if I can get rid of that navigation pane for you. It doesn't want to go away, but still, we'll talk about it. There it goes. Do you know what this box is on the back right of the truck?
It's a box, a metal box, and I don't know what it's for.
Obviously, a box is made to put something in, right?
Yes.
Maybe like a fire extinguisher or something like that?
Anything that would fit in it.
Okay. Did you find any trucks in your research with a similar type box on the back?
No.
So that would be something even more unique.
Yes.
And I think you can barely see it at the bottom, but you mentioned in your report there was damage to the back right bumper, correct?
Yes.
Granted, 8 years had passed. There is no evidence of when it was inflicted, correct?
Correct.
However, if you assume hypothetically that it existed in 2010, that damage would be unique to that truck, would it not?
It would.
Okay. Now, we've heard testimony from other witnesses. Are you aware that the box of the truck, the utility cabinets, had been painted since 2010,
I was aware of that.
including the latches?
I believe the entire box was painted.
And were you also aware of testimony by Eugene Liscio that this latch was actually damaged in some way and was difficult to open and close?
I believe I did read that in his transcript.
So those characteristics would also be unique to that truck, would it not?
Yeah, damage would be unique.
And I think you can also barely see it at the bottom without pulling up another exhibit, the tailpipe, which is right there. Correct?
Yes.
Now, in your report, you attempted to claim that that was a class characteristic, correct?
Yes.
Did you do any research into the measurements or the angles of the defendant's truck's tailpipe to determine its location?
No,
Did you do any research to determine the angle or location of trucks you found in your research as to its exact location on those trucks?
no,
So it's basically a general observation rather than any type of measurements to back up your opinion that it is a class characteristic, not a unique characteristic.
it is a general observation.
So, but if in fact the angle of that low-hanging tailpipe were different from other models of this 3500, that would be unique in that sense, right?
If it was,
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
yeah, I don't know that it is, if that was a one of a kind, that would be a unique characteristic.
And you do know that these were used trucks that had previous lives in some industrial capacity, right?
Objection, speculation.
Objection sustained, since that's not in evidence.
Are you aware whether or not the defendant purchased this new or not?
I am not.
So, you would agree, would you not, that if the hitch, the box, the AC outlet, the damage to the bumper, and the dysfunctional latch were all put together on the same truck, that would make that truck unique compared to any other 3500, right?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled, the answer if he has anything.
I believe it would.
I want to move on briefly, as much as I can, to... You said you observed Mr. Lissio's testimony that was recorded, correct?
Correct.
And it was actually the video capture of his computer demonstrations, right?
With his voice.
Okay. And one point you took issue with was this segment from that exhibit where he placed the circles on the headlights. You recall that?
Yes.
And you put in your report a still capture from this video, correct?
Correct.
And your issue with the placing of those circles is what?
Let me grab my report here. Where'd it go?
I can show you again. It's
Okay.
just a segment of it.
Okay.
And as soon as I get out of this, I'll get the court and exhibit number for that recording. So isn't it true in your report, you take issue with the fact that he glued those ellipses onto the headlights?
No, what my issue is the ellipses are around the glare of the headlights, so you can't actually see the size of the headlights in this exhibit.
Were you trying to assert in any way that Mr. Liscio made that representation?
No.
Because he didn't, did he?
No, he didn't.
In fact, in that segment, wasn't Mr. Liscio attempting to demonstrate the tracking of his model and the headlights to that of the suspect video to show that they tracked together?
That I don't recall.
And the tracking of that model and those ellipses to the headlights of the suspect vehicle are consistent, are they not?
Explain what you're asking.
Mr. Liscio's model
Yes,
with the ellipses,
yes,
in that clip, the tracking of the headlights of the suspect vehicle are consistent, correct?
yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you a further clip in there. Do you recall this segment where Mr. Liscio measured the height of the glare off the bumper?
Yes.
And that he compared those, and you're familiar with him comparing the height of that glare to the Faro scan of the neighborhood, correct?
Yes,
Were you also aware that he then verified their accuracy of those measurements by showing that it did not protrude the asphalt of the Faro scan, correct?
correct.
You did no such experimentation or measurement, did you?
I did not.
You recall this portion of Mr. Liscio's testimony about the shadows behind the truck.
I do.
In your report, you referenced several times that Mr. Liscio created the shadows, did you not?
He created the outline, the shadows. Well, he did multi-layered production, and in the model, he did some work where he recreated, as he put it, the shadows.
Are you or were you aware that in this segment of his presentation that this imagery actually came from the Faro scan of the truck and were not created by Mr. Liscio?
Yes, that's correct.
The outline that he drew on the ground was meant to outline the shadow that was being cast by the truck with the brake lights on, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that that outline is consistent with that shadow, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to the form of the question.
Overall,
It's
the
assuming
answer
facts
she
that
has
are not in
not
evidence.
It appears to be from at this angle, at this perspective. I might add out here to the right, I don't have the laser pointer, I don't see in his outline the two layers of shadow. Do we have a laser
There should be
pointer?
one up there. If there's not, I can give you mine.
Thank you.
Oh, it's hiding behind your computer back there.
Thank you very much.
But otherwise, I'll give you mine. So we can have
Thank you so much.
dueling laser pointers.
What I'm referring to is these two lines, I don't see the shadow with that definition.
But you see the same shadow here and here, right?
Well, that isn't very clear. I'm not sure if the jurors can see it or not. I don't know what to do.
Okay. So then, you took issue with his creation of a 3D image of the truck and the trailer, correct? Or I'm sorry, the truck and the shadow,
The truck and the shadow.
correct?
Let me just cut to the chase here. What I took issue of is you do not see the detail that we see here in the actual video behind the truck when the brake lights are applied.
But my question was, in your report, you took issue with Mr. Liscio creating a 3D model of the truck out of the Faro data, did you not?
I actually don't recall. I believe I described it.
In watching this segment of Mr. Liscio's testimony, isn't it true that the model shadow, and the real truck and the real shadow in the Faro are consistent?
Correct.
And you would agree that there is a distinct light pattern as well on the ground being emitted from the truck's brake lights, would you not?
What am I supposed to be looking at?
I will show you. Let's go back. Do you see this light pattern here around the ruler on the ground? Below the shadow?
Here?
Yes.
Yes.
And you would agree that that's fairly unique, it cast off from the brake lights of the truck, would you not?
I don't know how unique it is. It would be the light cast off from the brake lights.
Did you find anything inconsistent between Mr. Liscio's 3D model of the shadow, and the Faro scan to be inconsistent?
No.
Do you recall the portion of Mr. Liscio's testimony where he inserted the outline of the shadow that he drew into the suspect video?
Yes.
That's what we're watching now, right?
Yes. Well, it's gone now.
Is there a question pending? Or an
I
answer?
don't think there is.
So in reviewing that, isn't it true that Mr. Liscio's outline was consistent with the shadow that was seen in the suspect video?
On the previous frames?
On the segment that you're watching?
No, you do not see this detail in the actual McStay video.
If counsel could leave up the image while the witness is trying to explain it.
Would he like to examine the witness, Your Honor, or?
Well, he's trying to answer the question in the.
If you could leave the last image up so he can explain what he indicates he believes he sees or doesn't see.
That's what I'd like you to toggle back and forth. And
I'll stop it when he zooms in, sir.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll stop it when he zooms in.
Okay.
Is that,
He's put the outline here, but you don't see that detail in the actual shadow behind the truck.
isn't that in the eye of the beholder, sir?
The video is the evidence.
Your interpretation of whether you see it there or not
Objection argumentative.
is an opinion, correct?
The objection sustained is argumentative.
If a juror or any other onlooker were to view that and see it differently than you, they would be entitled to that opinion, would they not?
Correct.
Do you recall this segment of Mr. Lissio's testimony where he showed the consistency between the shadows in the Faro model and the suspect video?
Not this particular view.
Would you also agree that the shape of the sidewalk and the roadway and the gutter would affect how a shadow is displayed in the suspect video?
To some extent.
And you went several times through your report to indicate images such as this did not exist in the suspect video. Were you mistaken as to what Mr. Lissio was doing with the 3D model overlay?
I'm sorry, could you ask that again?
You took issue with Mr. Lissio overlaying the 3D model onto the suspect video, saying those images did not exist and were misleading, did you not?
He places the model truck in places where we do not see, or to the extent that we do not see the truck in the Mitchley video. That was my comment, that it creates an impression that this is the truck, whether it is or not.
Do we not see the bed of the truck in that position in the Mitchley video?
We do not see any detail of the bed of the vehicle in the Mitchley video.
Are you asserting that Mr. Lissio somehow claimed that we saw such detail?
I don't know what he was claiming, I'm just stating. In
Did
the
you hear
actual
any
video.
testimony to that?
Pardon?
Did you hear any testimony that he made that claim?
I don't recall all of his testimony.
Well, you took the time to criticize it in your report. Don't you think it's important, if you're going to have those criticisms, that you recall what exactly was testified to so you could be accurate?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
Do you recall this portion of Mr. Lissio's testimony where he explained the shadow behind the truck in the 3D model?
I do.
And you recall his testimony regarding how if items on the back of the truck were manipulated, it changed the shape of the shadow?
I do.
You would agree that that firebox and that box and the trailer hitch cast a unique shadow, do they not?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this exhibit. I think it's misleading. There's no indication that anything moved on the back. No one has testified to that.
Objections overruled. You can answer if he has something.
You would agree with that, correct?
I'm actually not sure what your question was.
The trailer hitch and the box on the back of the truck cast a unique shadow, do they not?
In the model, yes, I do.
Well, and you already agreed that the 3D model was consistent with the shadow that was cast in the Faro scan, correct?
Correct.
Therefore, if A is true and B is true,
Objection, Your Honor.
then the next must be true, correct?
Counsel's misleading this witness on the
Yes,
issue of.
objection sustained, calls for speculation and conclusion.
You agreed that the outline of the shadow on the Faro scan and the 3D model were consistent, correct?
Correct.
And you agree that the trailer hitch and the box in that video clip of his testimony are unique features that if they were to change, it would change the shadow, correct?
Correct.
And those are unique characteristics that contribute to that shadow,
Objection
correct?
misstates his testimony.
Overruled, you can answer if he agrees.
Would you be so kind as to leave the image up when you're asking me about it? Now your question was?
The presence of those items are unique characteristics in defining the shadow, correct?
They would be.
You're familiar with Mr. Liscio's comparison of the shadow of the what appears to be the low-hanging exhaust pipe on the vehicle, correct?
I can't see it on the screen, but
Can you see it on the television screen or the monitor in front of you? They
Yes.
seem to be better.
yes.
Okay. Would you not agree that the positioning of that shadow is consistent with the low-hanging tailpipe of the defendant's truck?
I can't say. In this exhibit, is he saying, I want to make sure I understand it, that this tailpipe is from the truck in the McStay video or from the model truck?
Were you not familiar with the process that he went to overlay the 3D model onto the Mitchley video to show the comparison?
Well, he did that a lot, and I don't recognize this particular one.
Well, were you familiar with the re-emphasis of that on cross-examination by Mr. McGee
Cross-examination.
in this segment?
As I sit here, I don't recall that.
Your Honor, counsel's attempting to play a video that is not representative of the truck so the jury can keep watching it over and
The
over
objection
again.
sustained is to point, switching back and forth or doing overlays without a question.
Were you familiar, or did defense counsel make you familiar with that segment of his cross-examination of Mr. Liscio?
I watched all of the Liscio testimony.
So you were familiar when Mr. McGee asked him to do that overlay to compare the angle and the angle in the model and the shadow in the suspect video?
I do not recall that at this point.
And, well, has it refreshed your recollection watching that segment of Mr. McGee's cross-examination from Mr. Liscio's testimony?
No, it does not.
Okay, now that you've seen it, would you not agree that that appears to be consistent?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the exhibit.
Would you not agree that the overlay of the 3D model is consistent with the shadow of what appears to be the tailpipe in the suspect video?
I don't see the shadow of the tailpipe in the suspect video in this exhibit.
You talked briefly about the camera 7 or channel 7 video catching the suspect vehicle leaving down the street and you see a headlight, correct?
Yes,
And then you saw an illumination on the side, correct?
yes, correct, in several frames.
Right. And you surmised that that was the stationary side, what are we calling it? Side running light on the box? What do we call it?
Side light, just
The side light.
Side light,
You surmised that that was what it was, correct?
that's correct.
Well, when you analyzed the side light in comparison with the headlights, you did a lot of measuring, right?
On the other video, on the McStay video.
Right. And you put in neat little lines of how high certain things were, correct?
That's correct.
Including the 60 inches for the side running light,
No, within the marker light,
the side marker light, correct?
on the rear,
Right.
right.
You didn't do that for that Channel 7 video, did you?
I didn't have comparison measurements to do that in this one.
So it would be irresponsible to draw a conclusion that it in fact is the side marker light.
No, because you can see it in both the side-by-side in both the McStay video and the Channel 7.
Except for in the Mitchley video, it disappears, does it not?
The light is gone for a fraction of a second, a third of a second.
4 frames, right?
Correct.
And then it changes intensity, correct? In the 5th frame, correct?
I need to tell you what's going on when that happens.
Well, you weren't there that
No, no,
day,
the
were you
witness
not?
can explain his answer.
Overruled.
You were not there that day, correct?
I was not there that day,
Right.
but I understand the video and the compression artifacts and the lossy compression that this was captured with, and how compression artifacts work and how they mask fine detail.
But you agreed last Thursday that the light disappeared for 4 frames, correct?
The light was not visible for those frames. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. And then when it comes back, you see a fragment of it, and then it comes back to full luminance. And that is the result of compression artifacts masking it.
That's interesting, because that's not what you said on Thursday. When did you come up with that theory?
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
I have done I did mention.
You don't need to answer, sir. The objection was sustained in my question. So,
Counsel doesn't need to tell the witness the law, the court can do that.
The objection was sustained. It was proper to advise the witness he didn't need that answer.
in this case, you also had the chance to review the work of a Dr. Lenny Rudin, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And isn't it true you found his methods to be flawed?
I didn't prepare any report on Dr. Lenny Rudin.
Ah, yes you did.
Did I?
Did you not know that?
No, I did not.
Did you not criticize the SB Model 2? Page 3 of your report. Analysis of video overlay, the SB Model 2, and slowed 3D model with video.
I'm sorry, what?
Page 3 of your report. I'm sorry, even though they're dated April 29th, that's the first report you did. Where you did the enhancement of the aerial photo,
Right,
etc. So that page 3.
okay.
You criticized the analysis of the SB Model 2 and slowed 3D model with video, correct?
That misstates his report, Your Honor.
I'm sorry.
That misstates his report.
Overruled with an answer.
Page 5 was your conclusions where you used the word flawed, if that helps you.
I'm not seeing where I said flawed. Can you tell me what paragraph on page 5 it is?
Page 5, summary,
Okay.
second sentence. Fifth word from the left.
Yes, I see that.
Huh. Were you aware that that was the work of Dr. Lenny Rudin from Cognitech?
I was not.
Matter of fact, you attribute it to the Sheriff's Department.
Correct.
But, nonetheless, you found his work flawed, correct?
Well, the dimensions are off. The dimensions of this truck I'm looking at are off, are skewed.
From his work. What you were looking at of his work.
If that was his work, then yes.
And his results were flawed, were they not?
I actually don't know what his results were. I never saw a report from him.
Well, you went to great lengths to talk about the compression, the length, the number of points, the limited number of features. Those would be his results, right?
What page are you on?
I'm from 3 to 5, which is your analysis of his
Right.
work.
Right.
So you would agree that his results were flawed.
I don't believe there was results in what he did here. I was scrutinizing the proportion of the cab and so forth, and that's it.
So that proportionality or compression of the truck length would be a flaw, would it not?
In my opinion, it would.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything on redirect?
Yes. So, all this stuff with Mr. Liscio that counsel was asking about, just so the jury understands, Mr. Liscio, when he was doing the, working with the ferroscan data, which is a measurement, as you understood it, of Mr. Merritt's actual truck, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what we see in the video is very, I would say, very limited features of a vehicle. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Okay. So, if I understand you correctly, what you're criticizing is the detail that Mr. Liscio gave the vehicle in that he overlaid into the Mitchley video. Is that correct?
Correct. It showed much more than the actual vehicle in the video.
And therefore, since he's showing a lot more of the truck that you don't see in the video, it can't be accurate when you go to his models. Does that summarize what you were trying to say?
Well, he's showing with his models what you cannot see in the vehicle in the video.
Now, all the models that Mr. Liscio did, and he put the truck over here, and he put it over there, and he put it wherever to fit whatever he was saying. Before you get to any of that stuff, as a photogrammetry
are in there.
Okay, photogrammetry expert, your analysis begins with the actual video. Would you agree?
Yes,
And if you're asked to do a comparison or an exclusion, you start with the actual video itself. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And then you go to what you're comparing it to, correct?
Correct.
And you work on a method of excluding it or including it.
Also correct.
And to that end, you look at class characteristics and individual characteristics. Is that correct?
You do.
Let's say during that process, you exclude the vehicle. Meaning-
In the McStay video.
Right. So if
Yes.
you're looking at the McStay video and you can identify a characteristic where you can exclude Mr. Merritt's truck, the analysis ends there. Is that correct?
Correct.
There's no need to do a Faro scan, 2 of them or 3 of them, and do overlays and do a fantasy neighborhood and all of that stuff, correct?
Correct.
Objection, leading, and argumentative.
The last question is the same as argumentative.
Strike any answer,
If there
please.
was an answer, it's stricken.
There's no need to do any of the models. There's no need to recreate and do overlays once the exclusion is done. Would you agree?
Objection, argumentative, leading.
Overruled, answer.
Yes.
Okay. Now, is that how you began your work in this case? You looked at the video and you looked at the known sample, which was Mr. Merritt's truck.
Correct.
And did you go through a process of inclusion and exclusion?
I did.
And did you look at characteristics of both the video and of Mr. Merritt's truck?
Yes, there were limited characteristics visible in the McStay video of the actual truck in the video versus the one that he used to own.
So, in doing that analysis of the known things that you can see in the McStay video, because as you indicated, you can't see a lot of stuff in there, correct?
Yes.
What were some of the items you were able to focus on that you were able to see in the McStay video?
In the McStay video, items were the lights,
When you say lights, are you talking about the
the headlights.
Okay.
And if there were what we've been referring to as driving lights under the headlights or not, they were the light on the side and comparing the height. Now, I'm not talking about the top marker light on the box, I'm talking about the one on the side and how high it was, and it was equal with the height of the top of the headlight, which was 39 inches high.
So in the McStay video, you saw a light on the side of that vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled, answer.
And you determined, despite what Mr. Liscio said that he can't rule out that it's a reflection, you recall Mr. Liscio saying that?
I do.
In fact, he didn't say it was a reflection, he said he can't rule that out, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Despite Mr. Liscio saying that, your opinion is that it's a light.
That's correct.
Okay. And the height of that light, you were able to conduct that measurement, is that correct?
That's correct.
What was the height of the light in the McStay video vehicle?
It was equal with the top of the headlight on the McStay video vehicle, which was 39 inches.
So 39 inches, so approximately 39 inches as well for the light in the McStay video, is that correct? The light on the vehicle in the McStay video.
Yes, the side light, the one
Side
in
light.
question.
Okay. Now, did you focus on that as a point of possible exclusion when you saw that?
Yes.
What further analysis did you do after that?
After that, with regards to the light,
Yes.
one of the things that I did was to compare channel 7 and channel 6 side by side, which I played before, and I can do it again if you would like.
Are you hooked up?
Yes.
Okay, if we could, I think he's on attorney 1.
Okay, this is the side-by-side of channel 7. I'm just gonna play it and then I'll go back and go through it slowly. We see the lights of the vehicle in both,
It's not projecting out, so
then you can't see what I'm doing.
this is attorney 1?
I'm gonna take a brief afternoon recess.
Wait, do you have your display setting on your computer?
Oh, you know what? The HDMI is not plugged into my computer.
Okay, well that would do it.
That would. Where did it go? Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Should be hooked up now.
Yes, it is. Okay,
You were gonna play it through and then,
yes. No, I'm gonna have to restart because plugging in the HDMI messed me up. Okay,
and on the left, we're gonna see the channel 7.
right, and on the right, the Mitchley, and we see the headlights coming in. And both of them, the headlights. The headlight goes out of view behind the wall. And here comes, I'm sorry, I'll do it again. Okay, now I'll go back and go through it slower. We see the headlights coming in and both camera views. The channel 7 is looking more straight out at the roadway where the vehicle is. Channel, and the Mitchley is obviously an angle from the porch camera.
And if you can describe what we're seeing. on
Okay,
the
we're
channel.
seeing the headlight in channel 7 is going to disappear behind the wall, and then it will be followed by the side light, which as it progresses you can see it more clearly because it's getting more centered within the camera frame, and then it goes out. And if you look over to the right, you see it over there too, in the Mitchley video.
Now, was that something that you were able to focus on because you can see it? Was that something you could focus on as a possible point of exclusion to Mr. Merritt's vehicle?
Yes.
So what did you do next? Is that where the measurements came in?
Yes, that's right. That was where the measurements came in.
Can you explain?
Yes. Using the Mitchley video and the truck, the lights in the Mitchley video, I took a frame of the headlights. They have, I should probably bring it up, shouldn't I? A frame with the headlight, and then moved the truck up and did a frame of the illumination on the side of the truck.
You may have.
Okay, this is it.
This was exhibit 1090.
1090, that's correct. So, in this one, we see the headlight, the bottom and the top have lines above them. We see the 60-inch to the ground, and we see the ground here, and those measurements were from the former truck owned by Mr. Merritt, and we were comparing those with how they fit with what we see in the McStay video.
So if you could go show the jury the next steps in the measurement process and how.
Yes.
Yes.
In the bottom here, I don't know if you can see it, is an excerpt from CCS Ross's report, August 6, 2014. And it says the height of the bottom of the headlight to the ground was 32.5 inches. The height to the top of the headlight is 39 inches. The height to the bottom of the marker light on the top of the box on the back is 60 inches. So using Adobe Photoshop CS6, CS5 Extended, which has measuring tools, the bottom of the headlight was marked, the top of the headlight was marked, and a custom scale was set. So we could use that for a measuring point. And using the custom scale, I measured down 32.5 inches, which is where the ground would be. And then from the ground, measured up 60 inches, which is where the side marker light on the top of the box would be. And this showed that it would have been above the overhang, taking it out of sight, making it not visible. The next was to identify the light, the side light here, and then the next one was moving it up so that it is overlaid with the frame of the headlight. So we have the headlight, we have the side light. We know the top of the headlight is 39 inches, and so this is about that height.
So you were able to determine that that side light in the vehicle in the video is approximately 39 inches high. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, since that light is 39 inches and Mr. Merritt's side light on his truck is 60 inches on the bottom portion of the light,
Yes.
that would exclude Mr. Merritt's truck. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, once that exclusion is made, do you need to build models and Faro scans and all that kind of stuff?
No.
Okay. Now, somebody that's just looking at the videos, if they're just looking at it and you see a light and then you see Mr. Merritt's light on his truck, visually you think, hey, that could be a match, right?
Correct.
And is that why you went through the measuring portion of this analysis?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you reviewed, when counsel was asking you about whether or not you thought that Mr. Lissio's, or Mr. Rudin's, or Dr. Rudin's analysis was flawed, and in your report you actually wrote the San Bernardino County Sheriff's analysis was flawed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because the Sheriff's Department, when they went out to the scene on October 15th, 2014, and did their experiments, do you recall that?
Yes.
And you reviewed that report, is that correct?
Yes.
And in that report, did Sergeant Smith, who's sitting here, who was out there...
Objection beyond the scope and misstates the evidence on cross-examination.
Sergeant Smith, who's sitting here, was out there with other detectives, including Detective Bachman. Do you recall that?
Yeah. Yes.
And when they were doing their measurements and their experiments, they actually looked at the light on the McStay video, and called it a light. Is that correct?
Objection, that would call for hearsay and speculation.
Sustained.
Do you have the report? Do you have the report with you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Did Sergeant Smith or Detective Bachman ever refer to the light that we all see in the video as
Objection.
a reflection?
Hearsay beyond the scope.
As to what's in the report, sustained.
Were you aware of any materials created by Sergeant Smith or Detective Bachman that indicate what we see in the video is a reflection?
Objection, hearsay, relevance.
Sustained.
Is there any materials that you reviewed from the Sheriff's Department on those experiments that would be inconsistent with what we see in the video being a light?
Objection, hearsay, relevance.
Sustained on hearsay grounds.
Do you know whether or not the Sheriff's Department in their report did any measurements as you did to show that the 60 inches would be out of view and behind that awning?
Objection, hearsay, relevance.
Sustained on hearsay grounds.
Now, regarding Dr. Rudin, that was who do you understand Dr. Rudin to be?
He's the founder and CEO of Cognitech Incorporated, which is a forensic video engineering company.
Would it be fair to say that Dr. Rudin is, I mean, you've been in this industry for how long?
Since 1992.
Would it be fair to say that Dr. Rudin is one of the leading figures in your profession?
Very, very well respected.
He goes out and he gives talks.
Yes,
He's a pioneer in this field, would you agree?
yes.
And he was actually hired by the prosecution, is that
Objection,
correct?
speculation, lacks foundation, and hearsay.
Sustained.
Was he, as you understood his relationship to this case, the prosecution's,
Objection, calls for
expert.
speculation, hearsay, and relevance.
Sustained.
you reviewed materials from Dr. Rudin, correct?
Yes.
What was your understanding why you were reviewing those?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled, we can answer.
Because he was going to be used as a prosecution expert.
And you wanted to see what his analysis was, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And when you reviewed his materials, he was in agreement with you regarding your testimony just now regarding the light and the height of the light and the height of the awning. Is that
Objection,
correct?
calls for hearsay and lacks
Sustained.
foundation.
Sustained as to hearsay.
Would it be fair to say that, did you speak to Dr. Rudin?
I did.
And Dr. Rudin was his analysis of the light, did you review his analysis of the light, what you call the side marker light that we see in the McStay video?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled, we can answer.
I spoke
whether or
with
not-
him about
Whether or
it.
not he reviewed it.
You said you spoke with
I
him.
spoke with him about it.
How is it that you ended up speaking with him?
Objection, relevance, hearsay.
Sustained.
What was Dr. Rudin's, Dr. Rudin was not called by the prosecution that you know of in trial.
Argumentative.
Sustained.
What was your understanding as to why the prosecution did not call Dr.
Objection,
Rudin?
speculation,
Objection, sustained
relevance.
as speculation.
But you spoke to Dr. Rudin?
You indicated you're calling Dr. Rudin, I assume you can cover that with him.
We are, Your Honor. Do you know, did Dr. Rudin do an analysis of, as you understood it, analysis of the side light here?
Objection, Sanchez.
Sustained as to hearsay.
In addition to the side marker light, you said that you saw some other lights in the McStay video, is that correct? Is these front headlights?
Yes, correct.
Was that another point of analysis that you could go to, a known point where you could go to either include or exclude?
Indeed it was.
Okay. And I have exhibits 1139, 1138, 1137, 1136, and 1135 that I'm going to show you. Show council first.
If you can lay the foundation, there's no foundation objection.
Well, I gotta see what it's showing me first.
These are,
I have better copies here.
okay, well, we'll stick with the ones we have for now, and then we may mark yours also, but I made photocopies myself, so we'll use those. If you could just describe what those exhibits entail.
The first one is exhibit,
Objection beyond the scope, foundation.
Well, do you recognize what they are?
Objection beyond the scope.
Council approach with the repair.
I have to wait for the reporter.
All right, the last objection is overruled. You can review those, and you recognize what those are?
yes, I do.
What are those exhibits?
Those exhibits are the headlights and driving lights of the truck formerly owned by Mr. Merritt.
Do you know when they were taken, and who took them?
They were
Do you know when they were taken?
October of 2014.
Okay, those are those are stills from a video, or the actual photographs?
They don't have, oh yes, item 1135 is a still from the video, as is,
Now, you're talking about the still from the video that the Sheriff's Department took on October 15, 2014?
yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I'll show the jury on the machine, but
Okay.
what number are we looking at right there?
1135.
Okay. And what does 1135 represent?
1135 represents,
And you said you have a better quality one?
yes, I do.
Which one goes to 1135? I'll mark the one that you have as 1135A so the jury can get a better. Okay. That goes with that. And what is 1135A?
1135A is, well, let me see. 1135A shows the headlights and the driving lights on the front of the chest of the actual vehicle used to be owned by Mr. Merritt.
Okay, and what was the purpose of you wanting this as an exhibit?
Well,
What did you want to illustrate here?
I wanted to illustrate the size and the brightness of the driving lights in comparison with the headlights. The driving lights are under.
Okay, when you refer to the driving lights, you're talking about the light underneath the headlight.
Yes.
Okay, and is the reason the reason you wanted to do that is because on cross-examination last.
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Okay, so you wanted to demonstrate and show.
Objection leading.
Sustained.
All right, so if you can just pick up the next one and pick up the next exhibit there that you have.
We seem to have some missing from what I.
Okay. Well, let's pick up the next one and see what that is.
Okay, the next one. The next one is it's 1136.
Okay. And do you have a better quality 1136?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Okay. 1135A, and 1136A. All right, and what did that photograph, and I'm gonna publish it to the jury, but what did that second photograph show?
It showed the front of the truck that formerly owned by Mr. Merritt at night with the lights and these driving lights on.
Okay. And this isn't something that you did, right? This is something that the sheriff's department did, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And do you have additional photographs there? If you could, while we're marking these, if you could just put those together, the ones that I made copies of and the ones that you actually have, which seem to be better quality.
Why don't we take our afternoon recess, about 15 minutes, we can get all of that marked and ready to consent. Keep in mind the admonitions previously given to you, not to form or express any opinions about the case, not to discuss the case, and we'll see everyone back in about 15 minutes.